Section 11.5, the exception classes hierarchy. Exception classes in Java API are related by inheritance, forming an exception class hierarchy. An error and exception classes are descendants of throwable class. A programmer can define an exception by extending the exception class or one of its descendants. The parent class used depends on how the new exception will be used. This is the main topic of this section. I will explain this more in detail. This is an exception class hierarchy. Object is the top class. Throwable class inherits object, and error class and exception class inherit throwable. And these are child classes of error class. And these are exception class, child class. And here, runtime exception. These are runtime exception, arithmetic exception, index out of bounds exception, null point exception. We call this unchecked exception. Unchecked exception. In section 11.3, I explained how to write a try-catch statement using these exceptions. However, in fact, these exceptions are not the ones that need to be handled using try-catch. It means that if these exceptions occur in your code, you don't have to handle them using try-catch. Instead, you must modify your code so that the exception does not occur. Can you understand that? Because it is easy for you to understand the try-catch statement, so I used these exceptions to make a try-catch statement. But actually, if you meet these exceptions, then you must modify your code instead of using try-catch statement. Okay? These are called unchecked exception. And there are checked exceptions. Checked exceptions must handle try-catch statement to prevent exception occurring. Okay? An exception is either checked or unchecked. The checked exception must either be cut or must be listed in the throws clause of any method that may throw or propagate it. You know how to use try-catch statement and throws clause. A throws clause is appended to the method header. The compiler will issue an error if a checked exception is not cut or listed in a throws clause. An unchecked exception does not require explicit handling, though it could be processed that way. The only unchecked exceptions in Java are objects of type runtime exception or any of its descendants. So these are child classes of runtime exception. So, like I told you, you don't have to handle these exceptions. Instead, you must modify your code. Okay? Let's do some quick check. Which of these exceptions are checked and which are unchecked? Null point exception. It is unchecked. Okay? Because it is under runtime exception. How about index of out of bounds exception? This is also unchecked. Okay, this is also under runtime exception. Class not found exception is checked exception, and no such method exception is also checked exception. Arithmetic exception is under runtime exception, so it is unchecked. Exceptions are thrown using throw statement. You can make your own exception class and then you can throw that exception. Usually, a throw statement is executed inside an if statement that evaluates a condition to see if the exception should be thrown. Okay, this is throw, not throws. Throw and throws are different keywords. Exceptions can be raised using throw keyword. I'll show you this by example. This is a throw example. You can make your own exception class, and you can create an object from that exception class. If you want to make an exception class, then you must extend exception. You must use this one. So my exception is the class that I made, and it should have parent class, exception parent class, and this is the class. There is a member variable, and this is a constructor, and this is toString method. And in main method, at first I create an object of this my exception class. So ME is an object of exception. Okay, and here try catch statement, inside the try block I throw my exception. Okay, so I made an exception object and raised this exception. So like this, if you want to raise your own exception using keyword throw, okay, then this line, at this line, the exception will occur. The exception is my exception type. Then the program control goes to catch to see if the exception occurred in the try block is my exception or not. At this time, ME is my exception type, so this is printed out. If we print out object like this, then toString method is called automatically. So this code will print out before throw my exception, and then print out E. That is this part. I am 10 in my exception class, and the main ends will be printed out because this line is not related with a try catch statement. Okay, so this example shows that you can make your own. You can make your own exception class like this, and then you can raise this exception object using throw keyword. Then you can catch that exception using try catch block like this. Okay, let's do some quick check. What is the matter with this code? System.out.print line before throw, and throw new out of range exception, and system.out.print line after throw. You can guess that this is an exception class. Okay. The throw is not conditional and therefore always occurs. Okay, so before throw will be printed out, and then there is no condition. This means just throw new this exception. Okay, so this exception will occur. Okay, so this line, this after throw, this line cannot be printed out. Okay, the second print line statement can never be reached. Okay, because there is a exception here, then program stops.